This video is for people who may be new to Coppell High School or who just are not familiar with the CASIO calculator. So I want to talk you through a few things, some assumptions that I make when you walk in the door in my honors pre-cal class, which may be a dangerous thing. So let's talk, which is why I'm making the video. So let's talk through a few things and hopefully we're up to speed on how to use the calculator. Okay, so first, the on button is in a weird spot. It's right here. And menu is another really necessary button. And so we can scroll through the different options. Your regular screen where you can say 2 times 3 is under here at this run matrix. So that's where you find that. One of the first things, here it is, you can delete a line or you can delete all and it'll clear that whole screen for you. These F1 through F6 keys are very helpful as they let you work through, they let you use these different buttons here. So if you push F4, then you see these math options. Exit is another friend. One of the very first things, anytime you take a test in my room, you're going to have to go menu, you're going to have to come down to system, hit enter on system, and then I always, we're going to reset. So we're going to do F5. We're going to reset the main memory, F2, reset till yes, F1, and this screen right there, it's reset the main memory and gone back to some of the defaults. That's the screen I'm looking for, and I won't hand out a test until I see that screen. Okay, and then to get out of that, you just tell it menu or exit, but we need to come back in, and then we tend to live either in run matrix or graph. Sometimes we come into table. Equation here is helpful as we go a little farther. Okay, so let's look at a couple features on graphing. Say I want to graph, this is the X that we use. There is another X on the screen. These buttons we don't push. So we want to use the X right here, the button. And that changes if we change the mode of our calculator. If we change to parametric mode, it uses a T. If we change to polar mode, it uses theta. So say I'm going to do x squared minus 5. Okay, so that's just a parabola that's been shifted down 5 units. When I can hit enter to get to draw. One of the things that I use a lot is going to window and standard, and then that goes from -10 to 10 and -10 to 10. I can manually adjust these as necessary, but that is a great setup. And then I hit enter a few more times and I'm there back to my graph. I can use gsolve is another wonderful thing. I can gsolve and find the roots, and all I have to do is hit root and it tells me, and I can scroll back and forth between the two. I can do gsolve and find, this one won't have a max, so it's not worth using that, so it'll find the min. Should be -5, right? Or x equals 0, y equals -5. I can do gsolve. It'll find, well, we need a second graph. If we have a second graph, it'll find the intersection. We can scroll over, and it'll give us a y calc. So it'll tell us, so say when x equals 2, it'll tell us that y is equal to -5, and that'll work on either. If I come back here, and let's say I've got the graph x squared, let's make it negative. So x squared, I want it to be opening downward. So notice there is a difference between this is the negative and this is a minus. Oh, so sorry. And when I want to use it as a negative, I have to use this button down here. So that's going to be another parabola opening downward that moved up to. They graph them in different colors. It's kind of glorious. I can gsolve and find the intersection. And I can scroll back and forth between those 2 points where they intersect. And now if I'm in gsolve and I've got multiple things here and I want to find the roots again, it'll either highlight this one, do you see how that's flashing, or then I could scroll down and then hit enter, and so no, I want to find the roots of that one. The TI does all of this, but this is actually a little easier. There's fewer buttons to push to get it to do what you need it to do. Okay, what else would I say? gsolve, oh, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll talk later about the type of a function. So we typically use y equals. This r equals is for polar. This parametric is for parametric type equations, and we will talk about both of these things in the spring semester. But if something looks like, if you're if you go to graph and it looks like this, then what you need to do is you're in the wrong mode. So then you go, exit, well, type. That's what it is. Type and change it back to y equals, and it'll change back to your y equals. So if you see type parametric, it would look something like this. So type y equals, let's get out of that. Another thing, sometimes it's helpful. Okay, I can do it in here. So I still have those graphs. Oop, they'll let me do 20. So say I'm here, and I found the intersection. Now, if I go menu and come back to the main screen, or to the run matrix, to your basic idea, the last x that it remembered is what it just solved for a second ago. So it remembers that x, and then I can use that value. The calculator remembers the exact value. I can also say I want to take that number and add 2 to it, but then I want that to be for some variable a. I just picked a letter. Then I can store it. This button right here lets me store a value as, and then I'm going to hit alpha a right here. Lets me take that value and store it as a. So now I just picked some random number at this point, 129, etc. And I now have that as a. So I could say alpha a, and it'll show me that, and the calculator will remember that until I reset the memory. So that can be helpful if you're using it as part of a problem that continues. You can store that value and keep going with it. We can, so delete all, and that'll clear our screen. Under options, we've got several different things that we can do. Numeric, you can find the absolute value of something. You've got, option. So play around and kind of see some of the different things. Exit again. Under math here, I can use matrices and play with that, which we might do at some point. Here's another great one. This button right here lets you use things as a fraction, and then F to D lets you change things from fraction to decimal or back and forth. So if I said like 2 over 7 plus, and I want to do 5 over, I don't know, I'm making something up, 11, it'll give me this. But say I need to know how much money that is, or I don't know, that doesn't really make sense as money, but say I don't want it as a fraction, this F to D will let me go from fraction to decimal, and it'll just go back and forth between the two. Okay, let me glance at this and see. Yeah, squaring, if you want to raise it to a power, you've got that button. Didn't really plan out what I wanted to say. That might have been smart, but oh well. Yeah, here pi is down here. You have to hit second and then pi. Let's see. So we'll talk about a lot of this. Another under menu, if you come to table is a great thing. So it remembers the last two y equal, or it remembers whatever you put in there. We put them in there when we were in the graph, but the table will remember them. And you can hit on table. Its default is to go for x values of 1 to 5, and I can type in something, say -5. I can type in whatever I want, and it'll do its corresponding x and y. Or I can also hit exit out of there. Okay. And I can do set, and I can set the table however I want. So I could start wherever I want, I could end wherever I want, and I could make it go, like if I say I wanted to start at 2 and go to 10, and go by 2s. So now, once I've done that and I hit enter, so now it's doing the even 2, 4, 6, 8, and I can scroll down and find that 10. So I can set the table, I can go in and just type in whatever I want, depends on what I need. Another thing that I would expect us to be relatively familiar with, if I come up to statistics, what it lets me do is it lets me enter in data. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to use those as x values and say 5, 10, 15, 20 as our y values. So hopefully you recognize by the time you're in pre-cal that that was a linear function. And so I can graph those points. Sometimes you need to go set the graph and make sure that it's going to do what you need it to do. So notice it'll say type of graph. So this is graph 1. It's a scatter graph, which is what I wanted. List 1, list 2 for x and y, frequency. You can adjust these if you need to, but we didn't need to. So I'm just going to hit graph 1, and it finds those points. And then I can calculate a different type of regression. This is linear, so I'm just going to hit enter for this x. Oh, I lied. I'm going to hit that one. And we can say ax plus b or a plus bx. Same difference. Well, not, but pretty much. So then I can take that and I copy, and it will paste it. Well, there we go. It drew it in. But now if I leave statistics, I'm still in the menu of statistics. If I come down now to graph, it took that equation and put it in here to y1 for me. But it didn't turn it on. Okay, so one way you know that that's on or off is if the equal sign is highlighted. So right now, when I draw this graph, it's still on the same window that it had done before. So I would do zoom, that's not zoom, window, standard. And there's that graph that we'd seen before. We don't want that. What we can do is we wanted the other one. We have to hit select so that it highlights that equal sign. And we have to hit select here so that that one's not highlighted, and there's that line that we wanted. So, some nifty little things. One more thing I'm going to say for now, and that's under equation. So, under your equation, you can do a system, which is that simultaneous. You could do a polynomial, or you could do the solver. Now, I would be careful with solver. It does not always give you all of the answers that you need, especially if you're dealing with trig or radicals and that kind of stuff. So use it cautiously. Polynomial, okay, so simultaneous will start at the top. That lets you have 2 equations with 2 variables or more. And so you could type in your coefficients as a matrix, and then it'll solve it for you. So if I had like 1, 2, 3, and then so it's like 1x plus 2y equals 3, and then let's say, I have no idea if this is going to work out nicely, 8, 4, 0. Actually, I do know that this will work out because of an IB practice IA that they've done. It'll be negative 1, 2. So then I just hit enter, and it gives me the answer where those 2 lines would intersect. So I could make it any type of system. I could have multiple equations with multiple variables. So also polynomial, it lets me tell how many, what the degree of my polynomial is, and I can type in my coefficients. I'm just having fun typing and not really paying attention to what I'm doing. I just picked some numbers, and then it found some, and this one, I actually got lucky. It had a 0 at -1 and a 0 at -3, and this one they're telling me times 2, it has a multiplicity of 2. We're going to talk about a lot of this as the year goes on, but these are some definitely cool features. I can exit out, and here's solver, and it lets you just type in the equation, and then here's your equal sign down here. So like I could say x plus 3 equals 11. I don't know, I'm making it up, and then I have to tell it solve or hit enter, and it found that the answer was 8. Okay, so obviously you wouldn't do it for a problem like that, but it is possible to do it. Just be careful. It's not always going to give you all the answers you need. And I hope, okay, so here we're back at menu. I hope that's good. I hope that's helpful, especially if you're not familiar with the CASIO. I think the CASIO is fantastic, and I encourage you to use it. Shift on is the off button.